Good morning, folks. Welcome to a slightly delayed Rangers Review morning briefing on Tuesday, the 6th of July. Joshua Barry, very happy to be joined by my good friend Stevie Clifford today. Plenty to talk about, Stevie. We're going to just quickly tell everyone about our sponsors at the Rangers Review, which is OneFootball. As we tell you every single day, OneFootball is a completely free app. You can download it. The link is at the very top of the description. And as we say every day, one-stop football shop. I think I got that right. Allows you to get your news, your lineups, news alerts. When the games come back, it will give you all your up-to-date stuff and allows you to follow football, whether that be up here, whether you've got a team down south that you like to keep an eye on as well. So OneFootball app at the top of the description. And also remember, you can subscribe to the Rangers Review at the moment and get a free 30-day trial. Just head over to www.rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. Right, that's the housekeeping done, as Derek would say, Stevie. I was thinking yesterday when I was asking you if you'd come on, what are we going to talk about? But there's no such issues now. We'll just round up what's been happening for anyone that's been living under a rock. Looks like Joe Aribo is very close to going to Southampton. Now the deal is the clubs are close to agreeing a deal, a £10 million package plus a significant sell-on. It's not a £6 million package as was reported earlier. And there's also a significant sell-on fee attached in that as well. We reported, I think, at the end of June at the Rangers Review that while Aribo hadn't signed a new contract, the club I think the club knew there was going to be interest coming from down south, although it hadn't been a formal bid. There has now been a bid, and the clubs, Rangers and Southampton, are close to agreeing a deal for Joe Aribo. So, Stevie, what's your reaction to it? The fee, the player going? I think it was quite expected, but it's good to see now that effectively something's happening in the transfer window, because hopefully this will be a bit of a domino effect for maybe outgoings and ingoings.
First of all, Joshua, good morning. I should apologise to everyone. It's my fault we were late. I could not get logged on, everybody, so I had internet issues, so that's my fault. With regards to the news, Joshua, I'm not surprised. We spoke about it, obviously, when we done the review a couple of weeks ago. We spoke about what apparently was an imminent Joe Aribo departure. Now that it does look like it's almost formalised, that's the stage we're at. Both clubs are close to an agreement. Joe Aribo's happy with the potential move, etc. So I don't expect there to be long to wait until he moves on. With regard to the actual news of whether or not he's going, Joshua, you've sat next to me now at Ibrox for a long time. We've spoke about this. Joe Aribo's a great player, capable of brilliant kind of form and brilliant moments, which he has shown at times. Consistency-wise, I don't think he's yet to give us his very, very best. In spells, 6 to 8 weeks, he's been absolutely brilliant. With that in mind, and with the player having a year left, and I know it's not a popular view, I get that he'll be a favourite for some people, but I think we're getting a very good deal, especially when you consider that it looks unlikely that the player would re-sign. So in 6 months' time, he's free to walk away and discuss moving to teams for nothing. So to get this level of deal, potentially as well with a sell-on, so if he goes down there and does really well, I think overall it's a very good move and a very good deal for the club. Obviously, we would have liked him to have signed on and stayed like we do with Kent and Morelos, Joshua, but at this stage, our hands are maybe a wee bit tied. So hoping this can be the first move. We expect Antonio Colac to arrive now as well imminently, next couple of days, and hopefully this will be the start of a small domino effect. The squad does need freshness. Joe Aribo, one of the ones that perhaps highlighted to move on by Giovanni van Bronckhorst. We'll never know. Contract situation, I think, dictates most. But as I said, to repeat, we're in a situation, Josh. We can't allow somebody with that potential value to walk away for nothing. So it's a deal that suits everyone, with a sale on as well, which is important. Maybe you could explain a wee bit more as well. I'll bat it back to you, Joshua, slightly why Rangers have been able to negotiate when he does have a £10 million buyout with the sale on, and why the club would have been happy to do that as well.
Yeah, so it's one of these ones where the wording's a bit complex, but because there was obviously differing reports this morning. I think The Athletic had reported a £10 million package, and Fabrizio, is it Romanov, of all people, the transfer guru, had said £6 million. So going off what we know, the Rangers review, the club are close to agreeing a 10 million package plus a significant sell on. Now, I don't know if, we don't know absolutely everything, of course, about what that means. But effectively, I think he's in a position now, Aribo, where he's at the end of, he's 1 year away from his contract expiring. I was told that he hadn't formally rejected a contract. So there was reports that he'd actually turned in a contract. I was told that's not true. I think, reading between the lines, Stevie, it was probably one of these situations where I think it was very clear that Aribo's been very happy at Rangers, and both Rangers and Aribo have been very good for one another. You cast your mind back to, I know it's been recycled a lot, but when Aribo came up the road, his ex-manager was saying it was a bad mistake for his career publicly, which is quite a big thing to say. He's now an established international player for Nigeria. I think he played the most games in world football, or the second most games in world football last season. Was it not over 70 games? Scored in a European final. A far, far, far improved player from when he arrived at Ibrox. But, also when he came up the road in 2019 for, let's not forget, £300,000, which is, a very, very good bit of business. And certainly, I think something that Rangers will try to repeat, and did so with Calvin Bassey. He'd have wanted to go back down south at some point. He wasn't coming up to Rangers to spend 10 years, presumably, when he first came. So I think it's a move that, while when Aribo was enjoying that burst of form in December, I think then people would have said 10 million, you need a little bit more from him. But you're right, Stevie, he's not done it consistently enough, I think, to I guess obviously the year in his contract and the whatever deals is included in his contract also is a factor. But I think the stick that was always used to beat Aribo with was that he didn't do it quite consistently enough, and maybe not quite consistently enough in big games. I think in the Europa League run he was excellent. He had the highest underlying creative numbers, expected assists in terms of providing opportunities for his teammates. He had the highest actually in the competition by the time the final came around. But if you look at those two bursts, one in the first month that Van Bronckhorst came in, and the other one kind of towards the end of the 55 season. You remember when he scored that goal against Dundee United, and he was playing off that left inside forward role from midfield, and he was absolutely fantastic. But there was always that belief that, can he just do it over a longer period of time? And in a way, I think it was a little bit unfortunate timing for him when Van Bronckhorst came in, because after AFCON, he did look really tired. And he's spoken about that in hindsight, hasn't he? I can't remember exactly what he said, but he effectively addressed the fatigue that he was feeling at that time when Rangers had a bit of a drop-off. Do you think he fulfilled his potential at Rangers, Stevie? Because although, we're saying he's maybe not went on to be the star man for an extended period of time, he'll be remembered for a lot of moments as well, and certainly he showed at times just how good a player he could be, didn't he?
Yeah, and he should be remembered for that. We got a boy for 300,000, which was almost as big a gamble as any in the transfer market. He's came up here, he's won the league, he's won the Scottish Cup, and he's scored in a European final. He's helped the team to a European final as well. So, with regards to him being a success, from Rangers' model point of view, he absolutely is a success. From a fan's point of view, I would have hoped to have seen a wee bit more consistently from him, but you cannot deny the moments that he had were outstanding moments. You look at his goal at Tynecastle, you look at his goal at home to Dundee United, which was the technician of those strikes was absolutely exceptional. He's capable of brilliant moments, as we saw against Braga, etc. And he'll leave having made a great impression on Rangers. My only point is, and this goes back to a wee bit, in December, Brian Laudrup said that Joe Aribo was Rangers' top man and Rangers' key man. I got a wee bit of stick because I disagreed with Brian Laudrup, and I said that that's not true. For me, it was Ryan Kent. However, when you look at it on paper, Rangers have Ryan Kent, James Tavernier, Alfredo Morelos, Connor Goldson. You could even factor in John Lundstrom into all that. 5 massive players that would probably be a bigger miss than the £10 million we're going to get for Joe Aribo. And that's not to downplay the contribution of Joe Aribo. He's just not, for me, one of the ones where if we were to lose him, you could say, well, this is catastrophic, etc. If this money is reinvested properly, which we hope it will be, then Rangers could strengthen from this. And it suits everybody. So regarding your point, regarding the whole overall deal and has he been a success, he absolutely has been a success, 100%. It's a huge tick in the club's overall transfer strategy, Joshua, of buying low and then trying to sell on for big prices. So with regards to Joe Aribo, and yeah, I might moan a wee bit about consistency levels and things like that. And you know how tough I am, Joshua, with regards to being pleased with player performance and things like that. But it's no slight on him at all. He goes with very best wishes. I hope that he goes down there for the good of us and really smashes it, because that may help us down the line as well. But when you look at the actual overall transfer, kind of outlook from the club, this is poster boy image almost in terms of what we're trying to do and what we can offer players that may be coming in the future. We can go, well, here's Joe Aribo. This is what we've done for him. If you come here, there's a potential for you to do the exact same.
Yeah, and we'll soon get on to kind of what it means in terms of replacing him and if Alex Lowry is a like-for-like replacement. I think just one final point on Aribo's kind of contribution at the club. There was an interesting quote, and I said this, I think, yesterday in the show. Steven Gerrard said after Aribo played at left back, and he said, good players can play anywhere. Good players can play football, great players can play anywhere. And I said yesterday, something quite cliche, but I do think when Aribo was at his best in that period, it was when he was afforded greatest kind of freedom to run over the top and kind of go where he wanted. I think when Rangers stagnated a little and it was a bit more structured, I never think he was quite as good when he was within a structured team. I think that's when almost the organised chaos of Van Bronckhorst's first month in charge, where Aribo was kind of given complete freedom. I don't know if you remember the 3-0 home win over Dundee, where he scored that goal from the right side of the box, and he was playing the whole rest of the half on the left side of the pitch. He was just kind of, I think, granted a lot of freedom, which really suited him. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with it. But as we understand it, a deal will be announced for Aribo to move down south. Two things to follow up on that, Stevie. Firstly, do Rangers need to go and sign a direct replacement? Is there a player that's going to be more suited to Van Bronckhorst football? Is Alex Lowry just right into the first team? Is he ready for that? And also, do you think this will kind of kickstart some incomings? Obviously, Cholak is one that we're still, I guess, waiting for. Everyone knows the situation. It's been well reported. We spoke about it on here every single day. But just firstly, do you think Aribo needs direct replacement, or is this the perfect opportunity to sell on a player for a big fee compared to what you brought him in for, and then promote a youth team player into his position?
I think that Alex Lowry is tailor-made for first-team football at Rangers. I don't think he's tailor-made for regular first-team football, and I think that would be asking a lot of him. And I only say that in terms of we need to protect his upbringing a wee bit as well and his progression. I wouldn't like to see Alex Lowry suddenly our number 10 first team in case that's a wee bit too much for him. Perhaps another option, but this is like what I said a couple of weeks ago to you. If Yanis Hadji is now going to be a central number 10 and that's going to be his role instead of being outright, I don't think we need to replace Joe Aribo. There's other positions in the team I would go first. We need a striker, so Antonio Colak's coming in. Am I butchering his pronunciation, by the way, Joshua? I noticed.
I think it's Antonio Cholak. I think
we just call him Tony.
Tony. Well, that will maybe be his name when he comes in. But yeah, Antonio Cholak.
We know he's coming. So if you look on the basis of him being there with Morelos and Roof, you would look at the front three being strong depending on what formation he's going to play. So your attention then would immediately go to the right side, and we are short on the right side. We only have Scott Wright. You don't want to have Yanis Hadji or Joe Aribo having to fill out there, because when Joe Aribo or Yanis Hadji were out there, they done okay, but it wasn't maximising their potential performance for me. So if Yanis Hadji, I would rather he was central every time. On the left, we're okay with Kent and Sakala are there. On the right, we need somebody. And I would think, and I would hope that our first point of call would be there. If then after that he went for a number 8 to improve the goal scoring midfield position, which we do need somebody box to box. If you think about Lundstrom and Jack are ably covered when we've got the likes of Sands, Kamara, Davis, etc. in there, potential for more to move, then somebody in there for that type of player would be welcomed. I'm not sure it would be my first choice in terms of where I would go directly into the market, but that's what the manager's there to identify. What I would hope, though, Joshua, is that they've been sitting. If we look at Cholak's move coming in as being the money that they got for maybe Itten and Rory Wilson, etc. If that's boxed away and we're thinking it's like for like, then I think it's a good move on that premise. I noticed there that there's a report also in Greece saying that the fee, the third bid by Rangers over €2 million, etc., is now accepted. We reported, if you remember, Rangers Review and also Fan Media, that 1.8 million had been accepted last week. So they're now saying that the bid that we had always said has been accepted. So I'm not sure why this is kind of protracted and went on, but hopefully we expect him imminently. If he's in, I would expect Van Bronckhorst hopefully to have a little list of guys that are ready to go, maybe even have done the background stuff on it, I would hope, and we're ready now to push on. We've been patient. We've tried to say that there's weeks to go and things like that, but I would like to see faces come in now. Right wing's a big one for me. I'm not saying that Scott Wright's not good enough. I'm a big fan of Scott Wright, Joshua. I think he can play a part in the squad. I think he can play a part in certain games, but maybe we need a like for Ryan Kent on the other side. If you get that, all of a sudden, Alfredo Morelos, Cholak up front, things are going to happen for Rangers and we're going to be a lot more dangerous. But if we're getting £6, £7, £8 million up front for Joe Aribo, I would hope that the club would allow Giovanni Van Bronckhorst to turn that around. 2 or 3 big signings in there, £2 to £3 million worth, would make the world of difference in this squad. And I think more as well, I think the fans are ready for that. I wouldn't think that many would think that we would go out and buy one player for £6, £7, £8 million. I think they would be happy with potential 2 or 3 coming in, first team starters that could make the difference. If there's somebody of quality for that amount, then great. But I think the fans are now realistic in terms of where we are and what we're shopping in. And it's just about what we do now. But I would expect, in answer to something you said earlier, I would expect this is now the beginning of a domino effect and a beginning of some transfer movement. I also would think that there's more to follow out the door at Rangers also.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the interesting thing is that in defence, unless anyone leaves, obviously there's been a lot of noises about Bassey. There's also been noise about Barisic in the past. The defence is fine, I think, as it is. I think most people would say that. Maybe you need to move a centre back out, but the fact that Rangers have moved out Itten for a decent fee, given what they paid for him, and he didn't work out. They've also moved out Hasty. You'd hope that would follow with maybe the likes of Simpson, who hasn't worked for at Ibrox. Deep line midfielders, I don't think that Rangers will sign anyone in that number 6 position, because I just think they have so many players there. You also got to look at James Sands. I mean, he's one that I can't see it in this current state. Rangers going and kind of securing his services on a full-time deal next summer, but he's still a player that is in. I think he's now 22. Obviously, came with quite a high reputation, and although it's not really worked out, he's still not really had a chance. And I think there is a player there. I mean, Dundee away in the Cup was a good example, who can be quite a facilitator in terms of what Rangers need from deep midfielders sometimes to allow their fullbacks to attack. So let's say that area is kind of set. You move up a line, and I think that's where you think, okay, this is where we need reinforcement. Because if Van Bronckhorst is going to use his 2 number 8s, and we couldn't tell much from that Partick game because we only seen the highlights. We'll know, I guess, at the Sunderland game at the weekend, kind of maybe a bit more what's template's going to be for domestic football, Stevie. But you need more players in there. I think Scott Arfield, how many games can he play this season? He's had when you think about it, he's had a few injuries. Certainly when he's overplayed in the past, last season, I think is a good example. I don't think you can bank on him to play loads and loads of football. Lowry, as we've just discussed, some people think he's ready, some people think he's not. I think everyone would agree that he'll definitely, if it's his first full season, you'll have a dip here and there. You'll need more bodies in that area. Can Yanis Hadji play as that number 8? Has he got enough kind of defensive ability? And the reason you have to question that is because he didn't really play as number 8 under Van Bronckhorst back in November last year. And the right wing obviously is the priority. So presuming you get Cholak in there and you have Roof, Morelos and Cholak, I think everyone will be relatively happy with that forwards area. Roof, didn't seem to be used that much as a central forward striker. And we spoke about this yesterday about Van Bronckhorst's preference to use a physical player in there. But also he showed his worth when he's fit, which is always a caveat with that goal against Aberdeen last season when he came on at different times. And he's got a unique profile that I think Rangers will want to keep around, and hopefully they'll be able to see a little bit more of him next season. Čolak gives competition to Morelos. Who knows if they can play together? But those two areas, the right wing and the number 8 position, are so important because at the moment, Sakala isn't a right winger. I think everyone can see he's much better off the left, and he can be dangerous off the left, although, as is always the conversation about Sakala, he's unpolished and whatnot, but that's why he's come to the Scottish Premiership. You just really need a player in that right wing position, and hopefully Aribo's fee or reported fee when it is confirmed, when and if it is confirmed, will allow Rangers to do that. I mean, do you think now, Stevie, that it's been quiet for about a month, and I think there's definitely been impatience to get new signings in. It's gradually emerged that it looks like Van Bronckhorst is happy with the squad. Obviously, there's not the rebuild that everyone thought would be in April because of how the season turned around. How many players do you think, just off a whim, just reading between the lines, do you think will go out and come in? Do you think this will be the start of a bit of a domino effect? Because obviously the club will have been working hard in the background to identify players, even if nothing's been announced as of yet.
Potentially, I think there's as many as half a dozen that could go out the door. When you look at Jack Simpson, Glenn Middleton, Stephen Kelly, Nikola Katic. So there's even, there's a potential there that you could get a bigger name, Philip Hollander, Kamar Roof, if the money's right. I know we've just discussed him, but there could be potential there for a bit more movement. I'm not saying we'd actively go and put them out the door, first team wise, Hollander maybe, but when you're looking at the kind of half dozen, like Jack Simpson, Glenn Middleton, Stephen Kelly, etc. I'm not saying they're bad players. That's not my position here, and I'm certainly not the young boys that have came through. You like to see them do well, but there maybe isn't any room for them at Rangers in the squad. So instead of having them there, we need to kind of move them on. So I would expect half a dozen exits. With regards to coming in, after Čolak has come in, I would be happy with 2 first-team players. If we can get 3, I'd be over the moon. 2 would be where I am. We need goals and numbers added to the team. So if you think that Čolak brings that, we need somebody right wing. And then after that, I would potentially look to bring somebody from central that can score goals and hit the target and bring numbers. So if you add that, Kent, Morelos, right side, then you have the different options, a midfield option with your base. I think we'll be there and thereabouts. I wouldn't expect 6 players to come in. I think we're at the stage now as well where quality over quantity is really needed. And it might also mean, Joshua, that let's say, for example, 6 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, Glenn Kamara does leave Rangers for a really decent price. We might be in the position then, instead of needing 2 or 3, 4 million pound players or using the Aribo money, we might be able to just get one gem and use the rest as working capital going forward, etc. So this move was vital in terms of what we needed to do, I think. And then it gives us bigger options, I think, going forward, if anything else should transpire. I wouldn't be surprised if there is still one big move to come, maybe a month down the line. I don't think that'll be Alfredo Morelos or Ryan Kent. I'm still really optimistic they'll sign a deal, but others in the team might be possible. There might be room for maybe Glenn Kamara to move on and things like that. Just when you look at heavy numbers in certain kind of positions as well. So yeah, potentially I think there's still a lot of movement to happen, especially out the door. I would hope and expect 2 or 3 in. And I think once we get that, if they're the right bodies, then, and I've said, Joshua, 2 to 3 million pound players. Maybe there's more scope there. I'm not saying that that's what we've got. We might get a couple, 2, 4 million pound players. I remember the summer they went and got George Alberts and Joachim Björklund on the way to 9 in a row, and that made the world of difference. 2 key signings, really good players. And I live in 9 in a row. Everybody knows that, so apologies for that reference again. But players of that kind of stature would do me absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, and you look at the example, the last player that came in off the top of my head and really stamped their authority in the starting 11, apart from Bassey, because he was here the season before, obviously, is John Lundstrom. You look at the impact that Lundstrom made to that core group, and we've spoken before about the need for that group to be refreshed, but you look at the difference in Europe, the difference in certain types of games with a midfielder of that quality, but also kind of, I guess, different caliber to the other midfielders such as Stephen Davis and Glenn Kamara that were there in the first place. I think if you think of the type of football that Van Bronckhorst is trying to introduce, if you can get a winger in that does attack the back post, that's a really, really valuable asset. And also maybe a goal-scoring midfielder. Cholak, obviously, I'm intrigued to see, presuming he comes, I'm intrigued to see how he contributes. Certainly from the bits I've watched, I really like him in the air. Obviously, we've seen him at Ibrox that day, and he was very impressive in terms of finding the corners. It'd be interesting to see maybe if he can work with Morelos at points, but I think it'll be maybe more direct competition, which is what you need because, Morelos had to play too many games towards the end of last season when he got injured. But certainly, it's just to kind of re-emphasise that point, I think the Lundstrom deal is a good example of, although it took a bit of time, getting a player in that is going to work, that is going to improve that starting 11, because that's what ultimately Rangers need to do, I think, improve the starting 11 in key areas, specifically the ones we've talked about. Stevie, I think that's going to do us there. We've all got plenty to get on with. I know you do as well. Thank you so much to everyone that's joined in. A lot of you on with us this morning. Remember, you can subscribe to the Rangers Review for free at the moment, a 30-day trial. Just head over to the website on the ticker below. Stevie, everyone can find your columns, your excellent columns, every week on the Rangers Review. But just in case anyone doesn't know, where else can they find you and your writing?
Yeah, just going in Four Lads Had a Dream on Twitter, on Instagram and things. On Google, if you just type in Four Lads Had a Dream, all one word, .blog, you will find the actual website. It's a bit quiet at the moment, Joshua, as we know, taking a wee kind of summer break, which I've enjoyed, but weekly columns and things will kick in, and you can read my opinion every Friday on the Rangers Review, which is contentious sometimes.
But always good, always interesting. Absolutely. Okay. Thanks, Stevie, for joining me. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.